Zuma, if we could go to page 408. We had dealt with paragraph 40 before the long adjournment.
Just repeat for me.
At the page, Mr. Pretorius, and the paragraph.
408.
Yeah.
Paragraph.
40. We had
Okay.
completed paragraph 40, and I'd like to go on from there.
Okay.
Chair,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry
Yes.
to make this interruption. I have a problem.
Yes.
I have a problem because I'm being made to go through the the details that are the details of the officials, and expected to remember every other detail on the work that generally is done by the DGs and the officials. The questioning this morning, we've gone into those details. I have a problem because I'm not an officer or cabinet secretary, those who take minutes, etc. The manner in which I think I'm being asked questions on the details that I can't even remember properly because I was not working on these details. Now, naturally, this will have its own results. The results that will make the Commission to take some conclusions. Now, I thought there are serious issues or policy issues that one could be bogged down to deal with. Now, if you take this document, either the DG or the Secretary for Cabinet or something, they would know everything because they worked on it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the purpose of me having to remember whether T's were dotted. I mean, I's were dotted and T's were crossed.
I think it is fair to say that as president, there would be certain things that you might not know because they would be dealt with by officials and other people, and that there would be certain things that you would be expected to know. I think that's fair comment. Where there may be difficulty, and I think we can have a look, and I did say earlier on, you are free to say, look, I don't know that, I wouldn't have known that, and I think Mr. Pretorius may, going forward, have to maybe apply his mind more in terms of what's important that you are likely to have known or to have dealt with, to the extent that maybe some of the questions might be questions that might not have fallen within what you would have known. But I think what he may be trying to do is to make sure that in the light of the allegations that Ms. Barbara Hogan has made, for example, that you interfered with the processes of the appointment of, for example, the CEO, Group CEO for Transnet. And she goes into details into her interactions with you on her version. it may be important for the Commission to understand, for example, when we go to that report that Mr. Pretorius took you through, to say, do you remember having received this report? Did you note some of these points that she made, for example, that the board had made a certain recommendation? Some of those may be important because when a decision has to be made as to whether what she says you said was actually said, or that whether you said it or not, it might be important to have that full picture. But at any time, feel free to say those kinds of details wouldn't have been part of what I would deal with. And I would simply say to Mr. Pretorius, as we go forward, do have a look in terms of what's important for purposes of Mr. Zuma in terms of what you are looking at. So in principle, I accept the point that there may be details that as president you wouldn't know. But I think it may be that Mr. Pretorius doesn't want a situation where he doesn't put certain things to you, only to find that later on they become relevant in terms of what exactly happened, and then you have not been given a chance. That's my thinking of what he is doing. But I think going forward, it may be that he might wish to bear your concern in mind as he goes forward.
No, I hear you, Chair. I hear you. My problem does not go away.
Yes.
For an example, the allegation is put forward by the minister is that I interfered.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what does that mean. I don't know. Because President talked to his ministers about the work they do. I don't understand what is it. If, for an example, there were to be an appointment of an officer, they consult with the president. The president might have views in so far as discussing that thing. I don't understand this very broad word, he interfered. In what way?
Yes.
We are not getting, for example, to that point. We are going to paragraph, one line. I don't understand. That's my problem.
Well, to a certain extent, we are at that point because we have dealt with a point where she says she had a meeting with you where she briefed you on the process for the appointment of the group CEO at Transnet. And she says at that meeting, she told you that the board had recommended a certain candidate after considering a number of candidates, including Mr. Gama. And she says she was shocked and disappointed when you said, according to her, you have only one choice, that is Mr. Gama. Now, that seems to me, if it is true what she says happened, may well be an interference. I'm not saying it is. May well be an interference. I am not sure. You might be able, as you say, to say a president and a minister would discuss such issues as a minister of public enterprises would discuss issues as to candidates to be considered. But the president, if he has a view, would express a view, but would not be saying his view is the only view or the decisive view. And that gives me at least another version to say, well, she says this is what was said, but you say this is what happens, not what she is saying. So in in terms of that report, Mr. Pretorius was going through it because he is still looking at that issue, and I did indicate earlier on that in terms of her statements, or in terms of accusations that she makes, that's one of the very important accusations that she makes that must be dealt with properly. So it may be that there are certain details where you say, look, I really don't know that part, and I wouldn't know it as president, and that's legitimate. So I'm saying I hear your concern, and I want to urge Mr. Pretorius to bear it in mind as we go forward to try and avoid details that you might not have known about as president.
Chair, the allegation is that the president interfered. And
Yes.
she makes the statement, which I've responded to.
Yes.
I would have never said so. Because I don't, as a president, I can't say I want this and it succeeds because it's going to go through the processes. Even if I talked to her, no matter what was the end of the discussion, the matter is going to a discussion, which will determine. Even if, just for argument's sake, I had a view, that view might not work at the end. Now, I've answered the question that I never said that. That must be the understanding of the, the commission. Now, if we go through the details, I just have a problem, because I'm no longer dealing with that allegation, as it were.
Well, let me make this other point, and some of this might be something that I need to explain. If, for example, as we have in relation to this accusation that she makes, that you interfered with the appointment process in relation to the group CEO of Transnet. She says you interfered, and you say, no, I never interfered. And actually, it's not true that I said I had a choice of the candidates, not even to speak about only one choice. If I said anything about candidates, all I may have said was, maybe Mr. Gama might have been okay, but let's go and talk at cabinet. Or you might say, I don't think I expressed any preference in either way. And that's not how I normally dealt with these matters, and that's not how, as far as I know, a president deals with these matters. At a certain stage, she might have to be called back to deal with the fact that you have said you couldn't have said that. And because in the end, I may have to make a finding as to, did the meeting that she talks about take place between the two of you? And is it true that you said what she says she said? And when I look at that, I can't look just at that. I've got to look at a number of factors relating to the circumstances of the whole matter. That's where some of the things might be relevant.
Chair, my problem, you see, if she said I came and I said, you can't put this one, this is my only candidate.
Yes.
And I didn't do so. These matters, where you take the decision, it is at the cabinet. In the cabinet, all members, including the president, has a right to express the view in the cabinet. Now, that's why I'm saying I have a problem with the, if I'm looking for that, or the commission is looking for that kind of thing, that now I must go through the details page by page, paragraph by paragraph.
Well, maybe the paragraph by paragraph might not be the best way. it may be that Mr. Pretorius must look at the gist of certain portions of her statement and be able to put those to you rather than paragraph by paragraph. I think you may have a point there. You know, Mr. Pretorius will respond, but it may be that he needs to look at a number of paragraphs and get the gist and put it, particularly because your version is, I could not have said this. This is not how things have, worked. And therefore, it might not be helpful to go into certain details because my version is, it could not have happened. And I'm now putting my own words. It may be that you say, couldn't have happened this way because if it happened this way, it would have been improper and I wouldn't have done that kind of thing. So if it's fine with you, I want to urge Mr. Pretorius to look at trying things that way and let's see how it goes. And if there is still a concern, then you can raise it again.
Chair, I hear you and I appreciate what you say.
Yes.
I'm being really cross-examined very thoroughly on the details. And I don't know what will be the outcome of that.
Well, were you still in the middle of saying something? I don't want to interrupt you.
Sorry?
Were you in the middle of making a certain point? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I was just making the very same point that if we're looking on that particular allegation, you know, as we were dealing with the her report, insofar as what happened in the conference of the ANC, for an example, about groups or cliques or whatever. I said that she's expressing her own views here. And these are matters that even any ordinary ANC member will take issue with her in the manner in which she has written her stuff here. Now I'm saying if I go through all of that and the commission is not taking my answer to the question whether I interfered or not, even if I've given the answer, we still go to the details. For me, what other answer must I give that will make the commission to be satisfied? Is to go to the details in one form or the other?
Well, you see, when Ms. Barbara Hogan gave her version to say you interfered, the commission didn't accept what she said as true, as necessarily true. That's how I should put it. Equally, when you say what she is saying is not true, the commission doesn't necessarily at this stage say what you are saying is true. At this stage, the commission is hearing different witnesses saying what they have to say on certain issues. There will come a time when the commission must weigh up all the evidence and see and decide what it decides is true. But at this stage, just because you have said what she says happened is not true, the commission can't say that's the end of the matter. It must still look at all relevant circumstances so that when, at the end of its work, it has to weigh up and decide. It has a full picture. That is the attempt, to make sure that it has a full picture from all sides before that time comes. Maybe I should allow Mr.
But the details, Chair, they will include me not remembering these details because are not even mine. And I don't know what will you do where I perhaps I'm saying, no, I can't remember. I have no comment. You will weigh all of that. That's my point. If
Yes.
you make me to go through every other thing here, which it could not be my, or at a level of my activities.
Yes.
That's why I've got a worry.
Let me hear what Mr. Pretorius has to say.
Well, Chair, if Ms. Hogan implicates in her evidence Mr. Zuma directly, we're not only duty-bound to put it, but it's fair to put it in all its relevant detail. If Mr. Zuma cannot remember, that's the end of the story. But if a report dealing with a particular request and stressing the urgency of the request is addressed to Mr. Zuma, and Mr. Zuma says he received the report and he considered its contents, then its contents may or may not be relevant, but certainly should be put in the sense that Mr. Zuma has a chance to comment, so that when submissions are made at the end of the day, one just doesn't say, here's the report, Mr. Zuma acknowledged receiving it, he's in a sense must be accepted to have agreed to its contents. That would be unfair. But I understand the complaint in relation to stressing detail, and I'm about to get to the gist of the matter now, in which I will put, as up to this point at least, in broad summary, what Ms. Hogan is saying to enable Mr. Zuma to answer.
So I think maybe what you should try and do is to try and avoid the kind of details that might not help in deciding what actually happened with regard to this incident, and just bear in mind his concerns, his concern. So we'll bear it in mind, if the attempt that will be made after some time, it looks like still doesn't meet your concern, please feel free to raise it again. Sometimes it's not as easy as it is, but Mr. Pretorius will try. Okay. Mr. Zuma is not agree. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Skakane. I didn't see your hand.
Chair, I'm going to be very cautious. You raised your voice last time I raised this complaint, so I'm going to be.
Yes.
I think I'm going to have to repeat what I said to you and Mr. Pretorius in a private place in chambers. I don't want to do that. But what I need to do now, I would like to have an adjournment. I have a view that my client was brought in here under false pretenses. And now I need him to make up his mind whether he wants to be cross-examined, because it's clear, it's just been confirmed. He's being cross-examined. All I'm asking, Chair, I'm going to repeat the things I said to both you and Mr. Pretorius, but for now, because I advise my client to respect this process, come here, cooperate with it. I want him to consider that position, because I think I advised him in bona fide, but I do not think I was right. And I would like him to consider his position, because now it's clear to me he's being cross-examined on the version, not his version, on what people said. I do think I need an adjournment with him.
Okay, how much time do you need?
So if you give me 30 minutes, I'll come back at 3.
At
so
3
that
o'clock?
Yes.
Okay, we'll adjourn for 30 minutes. We'll resume at 3. Thank you. We adjourn.
Sorry?
I had said we would resume at 3 o'clock. It didn't happen. That was because there were still discussions that were going on. As you know, we adjourned because the former president had expressed certain concerns with regard to the details or questions, or some of the questions that he was being asked, and his counsel expressed those concerns as well and requested an adjournment so that the former president and his legal team could reflect on the situation. There has been a discussion involving me and the legal team of the commission, as well as the legal team for the former president. Both sides made a certain suggestion, which I have agreed to. This commission would like to make sure that, as far as possible, it takes everybody on board. At least it should make attempts as far as possible to do so. The former president has expressed certain concerns, and what has been agreed is that there should be an opportunity for both the Commission's legal team and the former president's legal team to look at the concerns and see whether a way can be found in which they can be accommodated without the Commission's legal team compromising the job that they need to do in terms of the investigation. It has been decided that we should adjourn the proceedings for the day, and we should not sit tomorrow, in order to give a full opportunity to the Commission's legal team and the former president's legal team, which would involve the former president as well, because he's concerned in the matter, to see whether a way can be found in which his concerns are addressed without the Commission's legal team compromising any part of their obligations. I must take this opportunity to say that I said yesterday, I think I said it yesterday, that I believed that all sides were trying to find solutions to whatever issues arose. And I indicated yesterday, for example, that the former president's counsel or legal team indicated that they didn't want Mr. Pretorius to be looking over his shoulder as he was asking questions. They didn't want to keep on raise objections, they were going to raise objections only if it was something really serious. So there have been an issue now, they have come together and they have discussed, and a decision has been taken that let there be time to look at issues and see if common ground can be found so that then we can continue. So we are therefore going to adjourn the proceedings until Friday morning. I am confident that there are reasonable prospects that a way will be found to make sure that we can proceed with a certain understanding. So we'll have to wait until Friday, but tomorrow all sides will be interacting with one another, with each other, to try and see how the concerns that have been raised by the former president can be accommodated. I am confident that it ought to be possible to find a way. Unless there is anything that counsel for the former president or Mr. Pretorius wants to say, I'm happy that we adjourn. I think both indicate that they have nothing to say. We therefore adjourn until Friday, 10 a.m. We adjourn.